Welcome to Far East Wargaming, bringing you another Heresy Thursday. My name is Richard, your host, and this week joining us again is Jason.
Hello, everyone. Good to be back once again on Heresy Thursday.
Yes, so we have missed a few of the Heresy Thursdays, really because there's not been that much to talk about, and we're coming back to you now with a little catch-up on, honestly, what the latest announcement that's pertinent to the Horus Heresy has been, and that is the new release of I think that was the third update book for Age of Darkness, at least in the campaigns, and this is the Martian Civil War book.
Yeah, this is pretty interesting. It's an interesting period of the Heresy, and as anybody that's read a lot of the novels, you'll know what this is. But just real quickly, for those that have not, essentially the Forgeworld of Mars, the mother Forgeworld as it was, broke out into civil war as those that wanted to side with Horus kind of subverted their way into taking over parts of the planet. This had implications for the wider campaigns of the Horus Heresy, the availability of resources to Earth, to Terra, also tying up resources and trying to contain the traitors, etc. So yes, this book is going to be diving into that civil war by the title, the very obvious title. I guess the only question on my mind after looking at this article is just how much are they going to dive into it? And I'll talk about more about that in a minute, because it seems like it's a lot of fluff and a few rules, and it doesn't seem like it's much else. At least they're not sharing very much in this particular article.
Yeah, having a look and doing a bit of sleuthing just in general, the size, and comparing it to the ones we've seen, the Siege of Chthonian and the Beta Garmin books there, this looks to be of similar size. And with those ones, there's been actually quite a lot of lore. Some of it repetitive throughout the different books there, but this one is going to focus mainly on the Mechanicum, as you would expect from the Martial Civil War. And I always like that aspect of these books. The question, you've hit it on the head there, is how much they've adapted the lore into gameplay mechanics. And I think they've informed us in this that you'll have access to some new warlord traits and 4 new blasphemous varieties of high techno arcana. And then, following along with how they've done all of the other books, there is an Onslaught campaign associated with this, which I think just adds a few new rules, very much like the Beta Garmin one added a few new rules to the Onslaught there. One of them is quite interesting, actually.
Yeah, I kind of misspoke a little bit earlier. What I meant to say is it looks like from the article it's probably going to be heavy on fluff and light on rules. I mistakenly said heavy on rules, and that was a mistake on my part. Apologies. Because if you think about it, the article is actually regurgitating something that we already know. So, for example, it talks about fearsome demon engines. These were usually seen in the exemplary battles. It talks about Questoris knights in early stages of corruption. So that might be a little bit of new stuff. But what it doesn't really talk about a lot, besides what you mentioned with the warlord traits and things like this, are we really getting true Dark Mechanicum with unique models or with new models coming out in plastic? Or is this just simply reusing the existing models and painting up in some of the trader aligned Forge World colors? I don't get a good sense from this particular preview article just how much we're getting in terms of the Dark Mechanicum, but that kind of remains to be seen. If I was smart, I would probably time this as a Q3 Q4 release to capture Christmas, and hopefully there's some Dark Mechanicum models being released by it. But if so, this article doesn't actually give away a lot, unlike some of the previous articles. So I have to say my hopes are not very high.
I think I'm going to join you in that boat in terms of a slightly pessimistic look on what is going to be inside this. I think if there was specific models that were set to be released, this would be the perfect time for them to preview them, at least the rules for such models, because they would release the models themselves very close to, or if not the same time as the book. They've done that in the past with a few of the things there. I hope that if they've not released enough to make true Dark Mechanicum, that they've released enough lore in there for you to know how to start adapting to your traitorous Forge worlds. At least the ones that lore is about there. Of course, you can make and design your own color schemes for everything loyalist and traitor of your own, but if you're trying to stay true to lore, which I know a lot of people in the Horus Heresy are, it'd be nice to have some documentation in this book about how those color schemes go. We've had that with when they did the Inducti for the Space Marines. They released a very nice color palette for all of the chapters Inducti. I'm hoping they do something very similar here with the Martian Civil War.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I do love my fluff, and if three-quarters of this book was fluff, I probably would still be happy from that perspective. And I think you're absolutely spot on that we could use some more of the color plates or the specific artwork that kinds of shows us maybe a little bit about the lesser known Forge worlds. That would be actually pretty cool. But again, I mean, just looking at this, it doesn't look like much new ground is going to be covered, and I hope to be surprised. I really do. I mean, yes, new warlord traits. Yes, this new high techno arcana, which we don't necessarily know what that means, but that's only going to be specific to the Dark Mechanicum, right? Because again, that's who had the high techno arcana. But we'll see. I don't know. I would say that out of all the books, this one probably has me the least excited. And that's a bit contradictory because I'm actually very excited by the release of the Mechanicum in plastic. I think it's something that we've all been screaming for, and it's going to allow more players to play the Mechanicum and thus play 30K. Uh, but I'm just not getting much out of this article. And again, what I keep coming back to is it seems like every time they have one of these articles, they tease something, whether it's a piece of artwork or whether it's a comment at the very bottom of the article. I mean, we've talked about kind of these little Easter eggs before, but going through this one over and over again, I just don't see a lot of new stuff. And I don't know. Again, I'm a bit nervous.
I want to throw something really. This is a pipe dream, honestly, in my opinion. But they have shown the ability to use Titans in smaller games with this stratagem for the Onslaught campaign called Titan Support, which allows you to use a Titan in sub 3,000 point games. Now, whether you'd want to do such in a friendly term or not is entirely up to you. But the fact that the Titan now is supposed to be slightly more mainstream, I'm hoping on the very, very slight off chance that some of the more standard Titans will come in plastic big kits as opposed to the Forgeworld massive resin kits they've got.
Yeah, that's an interesting take, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't get too excited by this because it says that this is a campaign stratagem, right? Now, obviously, as you well know from our battle reports, we house rule things when necessary to make the game more interesting, more fun, easier to film, etc. But this specifically refers to a campaign stratagem, so therefore it's not going to be usable in open games, right? Um, Everybody loves Titans on the table, but Titans are incredibly powerful. And now opening this up for them to be fielded at smaller points values, which previously kept them out, just means that it's probably going to be a bad day for whoever's facing a Warlord Titan in a 3,000 point game. You're not going to be able to kill it. Unless you have something like, I don't know, like a Venator that does exoshock and concussive and stuff like that. Um, yeah, I don't know. Coming back to the second part of your point, excuse me, about Titans and plastic, I don't believe we will ever get a Warlord. I really don't, just because of the sheer amount of pieces that are required. Um, but I do think a Warhound in plastic and some of the bigger knights, right? Like I can't remember all the Archeron, the various knights that are bigger than the Lancers. I do think there's a possibility that we could get those in plastic, but there's no way in my mind a Warlord because even if you did it in plastic, you're still probably charging close to a Forge World price because they haven't really gone too much cheaper when they convert over to plastic. And there's just not that many people that have 1,500 to 2,000 burning a hole in their pocket, right? So I can't imagine that the ROI for the tooling and everything else would be met. But hey, who knows? I just think it's more viable on the smaller scale of Titan.
Yeah, you bring up valid points. I think it will mainly come down to the ROI of how many people would buy this if they tooled it. I'm sure if there was enough people demanding plastic Titans at that scale, they would go about it. Because you've got to bear in mind, they've got all of these in Titanicus scale, which means they already have the CAD models to upscale the majority of these parts. Now, of course, there is some finicking from one scale to the other, but the pieces are there to be done. It's whether it's financially viable for Games Workshop to do so. Fingers crossed that that finance isn't the only thing that Games Workshop cares about, and they'd finally give us something just for the fans' enjoyment. And I think if it was sub the Games Workshop Forgeworld prices for these Titans, not even that much below, it would still be appealing to more people right now than the massive resin kits, where it is very much an advanced expert passion kit to build, because there is so much shaving, so much resin cutting, so much green stuffing that is needed to get one of these things built to a good standard. And for the larger ones, there's actually a lot of engineering required, because you need to start putting some metal rods in places to hold things up that aren't already kitted out or holed out for this in the Titan models, just to have it secure enough to be happily transported.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it does take a very dedicated hobbyist to work on the Titan, and I have a lot of respect for those that do so. And you're absolutely right. You start getting into the realm of some heavy duty tools and know-how that's required. I'm going to throw another angle at you, just because we're on a little bit of tinfoil hat, a little bit of just hypotheticals here. Um, why is it that in the entire month of July, from July 1st to now, we've got 2 articles about the heresy, but we've got 6 about Necromunda on Warcom? Um, you can't tell me that Necromunda outsells 30K. I'm sorry, you can't. But they've actually put more articles, more models, more releases in Necromunda in the last 2.5 weeks than they have for 30K. And I think it's just another disappointing sign, right? That for whatever reason, they just don't feel like they put the same level of attention to this game that in my mind, they really should, if they truly wanted to be successful. That to me is also just weird. And I just thought about it as I'm cursoring through the website.
Yeah, look, Games Workshop has multiple systems, and they all need to see love at some point or another. And I do agree that some of these smaller specialist game systems, Necromunda being some, there's a Warcry, there is Blood Bowl, there's others there. They don't see anywhere near as much love, and I think it's more the fact that they just release it in a big wave, and we maybe hit a big wave. But another aspect of these smaller games is the barrier entry into them is considerably smaller than playing something as large as Horus Heresy, Age of Darkness, or a proper Warhammer 40k or Age of Sigmar game, where you need dozens, if not tens, hundreds is maybe a bit high, but you need dozens of models. You need 5-6 units of 10. It's a lot to paint for a beginner, whilst these smaller specialist games, they're just a box of a few models to get you into the hobby, and it may be an angle that Games Workshop is pushing.
I get it. I totally get it. I mean, yes, I actually agree with your take that this is probably targeted at different groups and different entry levels and things like this. I get all that, right? I guess what I'm just trying to say is it feels like we started the year with a bit of momentum, and we had a release schedule, and we had all these, commitments and different things, and then it really feels like as the summer hit, that the attention level from Games Workshop on 30K has just dropped off, right? In the pace of releases or the information that we're getting. And I also get the fact that they're probably prepping up for the big holiday run. Typically you're going to have to be scheduling your production for Christmas several months in advance. In some industries and some markets, you could actually be planning 9 months in advance for your Christmas production. So I get all that, right? But it just seems that the attention is not where it should be on 30K. And I guess I just like to see more of that to stay positive about it. And also what has been previously teased or promised delivered on. So yeah, it's not really a rant so much. It's just more pointing out that there's, an interesting, I think, disconnect between the amount of content for 30K versus other game systems right now.
Yeah, look, all very valid points, and I don't think any of those are wrong points of view or ideas there. I think this actually really stems from Horus Heresy becoming Games Workshop mainstream and moving out of the realm of Forgeworld. So it is sharing very much the same resources that Games Workshop allocates to all its other systems. And to be on Games Workshop's side here in terms of an excuse, Age of Sigmar has just released, and that is their biggest push for the entire of the company, I'm sure, right now, before they push another 40k release coming up, I think, in the next couple months. I want the boxes that they've announced, the Mechanicum box, to come out as soon as possible, because it was great to see the preview of it. It means that everything's ready. It's just about getting it into production for them. And we've known for a long time that Games Workshop is having production issues. And I think this is just another factor that's penalizing us as 30k Horus Heresy players. That the stuff that we're looking for is just not in the pipeline on time for this. I think that schedule that we saw 18 months back, where they released a 2-year schedule for Age of Darkness, it's been off track for a while. I think it came close to being back on track for a tiny bit of time, but I'd be very surprised if we follow any more of that track in a timely manner.
Yeah, I get it. And I also do realize that Age of Sigmar just dropped, but there's just a lot of evidence that actually Skaven Tide, the new box set for Age of Sigmar, is just not doing well, right? So I think that perhaps the combination of people's buying power and maybe oversaturation or over-release, however you want to describe it, and just general unease and uncertainty in the world these days is probably contributing to the fact that their sales are having a bit of a downturn. But I wish 30k would get the right attention. So I won't beat that point too much. I know that we did have something else that we wanted to talk about today, because there is actually another article worth mentioning on Warcom.
Yeah, it's Games Workshop related, but it's actually by another company that Games Workshop outsources everything to. They announced the Joy Toy line of miniatures, and this time they've got Magnus and the Thousand Suns range. And I just can't say enough good things about these models. Like, they're not in the scale we'll ever paint. I'm also personally not of the artistic talent to want to try and repaint these things, like I know some people have, to make them even better than they are. But I'm just amazed at the quality that Joy Toy can get out of these models. This is, I think, the third release from Joy Toy and Games Workshop collaboration, and they've released the 26.2 centimeter tall Magnus the Red in full posable and multiple, I think, weaponry or just add-ons, as Joy Toy does. They've also released I think this is the Ezekiel Ariman model, and he comes in a multiple of poses. And then I think they released a Sekhmet Terminator as well. Or is this a Praetor Terminator? But yeah, one of the Thousand Suns Terminators here. And the quality is just really nice. Really nice. It's something that I would consider now a collectible, if you're especially a Thousand Suns player.
Yeah, I agree with you. And there's a fourth character that they also released as well, which is Magus Daemon, who's another famous character from the books, as well as has rules and a model in 30k. I've had the opportunity to see a lot of the Joy Toy line in person and hold it in my hands. There's some good shops here in Southeast Asia that do carry this line. And the place that I actually did it was in Singapore. I can't remember the name of the shop off the top of my head. You'll have to excuse me, but it's in the Chinatown of Singapore. They're beautiful. Like, I'm seriously considering getting back in to try and get a hold on these, because when the Joy Toy stuff first started coming out, I was like, really cool, like it. I think I might get interested into it. And then we just had such a trouble getting access to it in this part of the world. And now that I've had the opportunity to get hands-on with these things, I think I'm going to just go ahead and just dive right in. I agree with you that this collection, or this, let's call it this release burst of Thousand Suns, is really, really nice. These are all legendary characters. The detail and the pictures, the posability, everything looks fantastic. And like I said, if it looks anything like the other ones I've had my hands on, then I can vouch that they're really nice. Probably the only minor criticism I would have about this entire article is I don't get where the green comes from. That's not like a really well-known color in the color schemes for the Thousand Suns. I mean, I get it as an accent color, like on glowing orbs or jewels or something like this, but green cloaks and all this tabards and all this, it just doesn't look really good to me. But that's just a personal choice. It just reminds me a lot of Christmas, and that's not what I want in my 30K. Uh, but no, I mean, other than that, yeah, these are fantastic. Really, really cool looking stuff. And yeah, maybe Christmas, I might have a couple of these under the tree. Who knows? But
Yeah.
not in these Christmas colors, I'm sorry.
Well, that's what the repainting is for. So just to summarize, they also released the Rogel Dawn in all his gold. He was released on his own, and the War Master Horus was released with a Abaddon model as well. So Thousand Suns have seen the most models released for their line, which is cool to see. Again, I can't speak too much about the color choices we've had for the green there. Doesn't bother me as much, but now that you've pointed it out, the Christmas colors do really really start to stand out of me. It wasn't something that hit me at the very first. But again, I don't think it detracts from the quality of these toys, and just showing that this can be done on larger scale collectibles. I do really like this. I think Joy Toy. There's another brand that Games Workshop has worked with for miniatures as well, but I don't think the quality was as good as the Joy Toy ones, from what I'm seeing anyway.
I think it was McFarlane
Yeah,
Games.
McFarlane
Yeah,
Games. Those came in, I think,
yeah.
also they came in grey, right? You could paint them yourselves, and they worked with the 40K line as well. But these ones here, fully painted, fully coloured in, really nice. Really appreciating these models.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, look, guys, that is everything we were looking to discuss today on our Heresy Thursday. So I hope you enjoyed the discussion. And look, let us know your thoughts as well and your theories, your tinfoil hat theories in the comments if you think something we might have missed or a theory we might not have analyzed there, especially regarding what's coming up with the Martian Civil War, the book. I am hoping for good things. I will point one thing I forgot to mention when we talk about the Martian Civil War is it feels like now with the releases we're getting a bit closer to what the black books were in the first edition of Horus Heresy, but not as nice, not as well done is the only thing, not as refined as they were done back then, and mainly because I'm hoping this Onslaught campaign is slightly different, but if it follows the same path as the previous ones, it's going to be the same missions. And missions are something where, well, sorry, designed missions by Games Workshop for different events is something we're missing very much. I know we can adapt the missions from the previous Black Books, and every time a Black Book came out, there was always custom missions for those. But not releasing them by Games Workshop just seems like a bit of a lost opportunity.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, we were spoiled with the 1.0 Black Books. They are a cherished part of my collection, so I'm very happy to have those. And I agree with you. I mean, they were just fantastic versus what we have in 2.0. What I would actually settle for is please let's not open up the Martian Civil War and have the third reprinting of the same missions that we've seen over and over and over again. But again, minor quibble. But yeah, that's it from my side. I mean, probably just one last comment that I'll make just very quickly. Thank you for those that continue to like, subscribe, add your comments, give us feedback, and all of this. We really enjoy that a lot. I probably am not going to be seeing you for maybe 2 or 3 weeks because I'm going to be on some business and personal travel. But thanks as always for all the support. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah.
And we will catch you. Oops, sorry.
Yeah, we'll catch you on the next one.
We'll catch you on the next one. Sorry, I overstepped. But thanks, everyone.